Hey Spider Nation, welcome back to another episode of Spider-Man's Tangled WebShow. I'm Jonathan, and joining me tonight is James. What's going on, James?
Not much. Just having actually a pretty good. I had actually a pretty good week. Had a couple days off from work, earlier this week for to go to W Fastlane. I had a fun time at the pay per view. Besides that, the rest of the week I was just chilling, talking to friends, hanging out with people. Spend the day in the Milwaukee for the pay per view, and went to the comic shop and picked up some pretty awesome comics, that are actually pretty good and decent right now.
Uh,
Keyword: they're not anything currently written by Dan Slott.
as for myself this week, well, it was midterm week at my college, and so I spent most of my week taking tests and writing papers, and so, but luckily I am done with that now, and for the next 10 days I am on spring break. So, thank Christ. Um, because the workload was getting a bit much. I have a heavier workload this semester than really any semester in like the past year or two. So it's nice to have 10 days off. But you know who doesn't get 10 days off? Well, actually, no. I'm going to change that segue. You know who gets a lot more than 10 days off? In fact, he gets about 20 years off. Ben Riley, because after the events of Peter Parker Spider-Man number 75, Ben Riley is not seen again for about 20 years. At least he's presumed dead for 20 years. I think exactly 20 years because got a December 96 publishing date on this. Well, give or take a few months. Pretty much 20 years. But tonight, we do not have a current issue of Amazing Spider-Man to go over this week. That is not out till next week with Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 25, which is the massive return of Norman Osborn, and it's going to begin the end of Parker Industries. So we know James and I are going to be very happy about that, and we will be cheering on the end of Parker Industries as it comes along.
No, my wallet's not going to be cheering on that.
Oh yeah, because apparently this comic is more expensive than usual, so I'm really...
And because I took a couple days off to go to a WWE event, I'm going to have less hours on my paycheck. So most of my paycheck is going to go to that comic. So fuck you, Dan Slott.
Aw, no love for Dan Slott on this podcast. But yes, Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 25 will be coming out next week. So we will have a review of that on our next episode. And I don't know when the next issue of Renew Your Vows comes out. I don't know. That will come out when it comes out, and we will have a review of it when it comes out. But for now, we've got a few classic issues to tackle tonight. We thought it would be a good segue from the Clone Conspiracy arc into the Norman Osborn arc, because not only does this issue, Peter Parker Spider-Man number 75, establish Norman's return to Spider-Man in full, and also gets rid of Ben Riley, but Spectacular Spider-Man number 250, which we will also be covering tonight, really sort of sets up Norman and his return to Spider-Man's entire world, not just the superheroic side of it, but we see Norman interacting with more of the supporting cast, establishing himself in a primary role in Spider-Man's
I
world for the
I
years
will
coming forward.
say, I will say the post-Clone Saga, the pre Mackie Byrne reboot era, that 2 or 3 year period, that they had, I gotta say it's really underrated Spider-Man stuff. It's just it came out during a really shitty time in comics, so it kind of got lumped in there. But if you actually read those stories, they're actually not half bad.
Yeah, it's like, I will admit that the 1977, 19, or not 1970s, 1997, 1998 era of Spider-Man is actually, it's not great. I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything in there that's like, oh, my favorite Spider-Man run of all time. But I mean, there's some good stuff in there.
There's a lot of stories there that I like. Like Identity Crisis is pretty good, confusing as fuck, but I thought pretty good. The Carnage one where he bonds with the Silver Surfer, that's in that run era. Norman in that run is really great. And I still find it hilarious how people they shit on Norman during that time period. Oh, he's just a Lex Luthor ripoff. No, Lex being the evil businessman didn't start till 10 years before this era of Spider-Man. I'll give you that. But Norman was already the evil businessman going back to the 60s.
Yeah, it's like Norman did this stuff first, people.
Lex ripped him off, and then he ripped Lex off for the ripoff. You know what I mean?
So
And
basically,
it's comics. There's never nothing original in comics.
yeah, it's like, to be honest with you, there's no way to have originality in this stuff anymore, because it's like,
the last original comic was Action Comics #1. Every comic after that was trying to rip off on something.
Yeah, pretty much. So we will tackle both of these issues tonight, just to give a little bit of. I'm not sure how well I'm going to do with giving the background on these issues, but I'm going to try to do my best. Basically, the Clone Saga happens.
Just say Clone Saga. It's the end of the Clone Saga. I think people will get it.
Yeah, it's the Clone Saga. Ben Reilly thinks he's the original. Peter Parker thinks he's the clone. Peter and MJ are going to have a baby named May.
Ben dyed his hair blonde, so people want to confuse him with Peter.
Ben's wearing the Spider-Ben costume that obviously Mayday Parker and Spider-Girl takes on later.
I really hope now that they did bring back a version of Ben Reilly, that if they ever do like a Spider-Verse thing again where Mayday appears, I would love to see his reaction of, what the fuck? How does my suit fit on a 17-year-old girl? Seriously.
What else kind of setup can I do? I think that's like the basic gist of it. It's the Clone Saga, and stuff is really about to get real as we go into Peter Parker Spider-Man #75. And James is going to tackle the recap of this issue, but first I just want to go over the creative team very quickly. So we've got Howard Mackey, writer, John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna on art. RS Comicraft and LA as on letters. I don't know what that is. I don't know who they are. Kevin Tinsley on colors. Mark Bernardo as the consulting editor. Ralph Macchio is the editor, and Bob Harris is the editor-in-chief. Ralph Macchio. I feel like I've heard that name before, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I might just be confusing him with someone else.
No. You heard it before.
So this is Peter Parker Spider-Man #75, Revelations Part 4. This is the end of the Clone Saga, of course, except until 20 years later. But James,
it's pretty sad that, and it's fitting with the Clone Saga, that you have to say, this is the end of the Clone Saga, until... It's so fitting you gotta say that with the Clone Saga, because it literally is the song that never ends in comics.
Yeah, it's like, I'm thinking about the end of the Clone Saga. It's like the end of the Hobgoblin mystery, like the end of Who is the Hobgoblin. It's like, oh no, this is the end of the Hobgoblin's mystery. Until this issue. Oh, it's the end. Until this issue. It's like...
Since this is a 90s comic, I'll make a 90s commercial reference. It's like the Energizer Bunny. It kept going and going and going and going and going.
Alright, so James, what happens in Peter Parker Spider-Man #75?
Pretty much the issue begins, since I got a back issue here and being a 90s kid, it begins with a sweet, badass ad for a Marvel game that I actually remember playing when I was a kid. Marvel Warrior of the Gems. It's a badass game, and I love the picture here. You know, Iron Man and Spider-Man and the Hulk and Wolverine with one of his claws being shorter than all the others, jumping out at you for the game cartridge. Look at one of the claws is smaller. I think it's artistic license of the angle, but it's like really, it looks like one of his claws got chopped off. But anyways, we're not reviewing a cover of a game cartridge. We're recovering a Spider-Man comic, and it begins with it's Halloween. I'm gonna stop here before we get copyright claims. You see a lot of people dressed up. You see a couple dressed up as Superman. You got a guy dressed up as a cop. Somebody dressed up as the Emperor from Star Wars. Witch, stuff like that. A man in a ballerina suit, because I guess it's funny. And then a kid dressed up as a goblin. And who is that kid? Normie, of course.
Of course.
Because after your dad died in a goblin suit, of course he's going to go out the next Halloween trick-or-treating in that costume.
I wonder what Liz thought about that. It's like, if I was Liz, I would just be like, man, you're about as much of a dick as your father and your grandfather.
So... But actually, I think he's doing it to rebel, because the first thought balloon by him is, my mommy and her new boyfriend are going to a party at the Bugle.
Yeah, and I love how, going is for whatever reason in bold. I'm like, why are you, emboldening the word going in there? I don't really understand why.
And she's dating Foggy Nelson.
Oh, yeah. She's also dating Matt Murdock's sidekick, so there you go.
Because remember... Even though Foggy Nelson in the history of comics has always been shown as the fat, short, pudgy guy next to Matt who could never get the girl, he a lot of times more than Matt gets the girl, and Matt gets the girl more than Tony Stark. So that's saying something. Of course, the girls that Matt gets always dies at the end of it, but still.
Except for Black Widow.
Well, yeah, because she's a different case because she's popular and is a member of the Avengers and has fans. But any other girlfriend. So yeah, he goes around and he bumps into somebody, and then he says, "Sorry, mister." And then he's like, "Oh, what a pair of threatening goblins we have. Well, I'm going to give you, totally not my grandson, all the candy, while all your friends get fuck all." And then he goes, "Because it's the night of the goblins." And the kid then realizes that it's the grandfather, which is weird. Because all these years you're just seeing your dad talking to like the pictures of his father, like, "I'm going to avenge you, Dad, after you die." And probably he took Normie to the tombstone and everything. And so all of a sudden here his grandfather's like, "Oh, it's the night of the goblins. Here's candy. Bye." As he goes, "Grandpa?" So we see Peter being Spider-Man. Well, not really being Spider-Man. He's in his Peter Parker clothes, but he's like doing Spider-Man stuff because he has to get to the hospital. Because while fighting Mental Strom, because they brought back Mental Strom because Norman was returning, and he's a robot. I don't know if John knows the context there, but he was a robot.
I'm aware of the context, but...
So Spider-Man's on his way to the hospital. He has to get there because Mary Jane's going into labor. And then, of course, when he gets there, he meets the mysterious evil nurse that took the baby and caused the miscarriage the issue before. And now she gives Peter a shot, and now he's going to faint and fall apart. Not before her face morphs into a pumpkin bomb. Because... comics and fuck it.
And goblins and Halloween.
And then we go to the Daily Bugle and Jonah's going there and they're all at a Halloween party. And nobody, including fucking Jonah, who runs the goddamn newspaper, understands who threw the party at the Bugle for every guy who's a Spider-Man supporting character and somehow related to Peter Parker. Literally everybody's there. If Aunt May was alive, she would be there. And then we go to Peter, he's in the costume, he's waking up, and he's wondering, what the hell's going on here? Why am I in my costume? Why is there fucking pumpkin bombs here? And then he realizes, as he knows in the smoke, he can start to see the face, and he goes, no, it can't be. No, anything but you. Yes, it is, Peter. It is the Sega Saturn. Wasn't that a shitty console?
Yes, that is the advertisement in between the pages there.
Remember the 90s, the only thing more shittier than comics was Sega in the mid-90s. And it had a 3-page ad. So yeah, then we get to the big splash page with the credits and everything as Peter freaks out because it's Norman. And then Peter's like, "Yes, Peter's back. After all these years, I'm free. It's time to conquer the spider world." And then he's like, then Peter's all like, "Nope, not believing it. You're a clone." And then they recap the night Gwen Stacy died and Norman being hit by the glider because we need another recap of that. But it actually kind of makes sense because the internet's still in its early infancy. So you might have a few new readers who don't know what the fuck the context is for the story. So this actually fits showing, Gwen Stacy's neck snapping and, Norman being impaled by the glider. And he's all like, "Nope, I'm not a clone. I'm the real Norman Osborn, and I can prove it." And then he pulls a Hulk Hogan and rips his shirt off, revealing the scar. And he goes, "See, I got the scar from the glider. You remember when I told you I'm like a father to you, and then you said I had a father. His name is Ben Parker, and then my own glider came in and ran me over in the gut, and I went, Peter, don't tell Harry." Wait, that's the wrong continuity.
Avenge me!
No. Then I'm gonna get some pie. So good.
Not until after I fly around on a snowboard and hit my head on a really rusty pipe.
That I didn't mind because I like how they homage the Osborn and Nisha storylines that always explain how they forgot they were goblins, him and Norman. So I like how they homage that at least once in the movies. Oh, don't forget the "Come on, baby, let's do the twist" food montage between him and Mary Jane.
Oh yes, the most classic moment in any superhero film ever, right up there with Reed Richards' Bachelor Party, which coincidentally, that movie also came out that year.
Literally, I still remember I think it was Fantastic Four that came out after that, and I still remember to this day leaving the theater and then somebody say the X-Men movie last year sucked, the Superman movie last year sucked, the Batman one was actually pretty good, the Spider-Man movie sucked, this movie sucked more than the original Fantastic Four movie a few years ago that also sucked, and now they think they can pull off on an Iron Man movie that's going to set up an Avengers movie. That's going to double suck. And it's like, how like wrong that guy ended up being.
And thank God he was wrong.
Or Marvel would be out of business to this day. Because they literally put all their money into Iron Man in the MCU. Literally, they put all their money and they bet it all, pretty much. Because they went to the biggest national bank to get a loan, and they put up, literally, the rights to everybody.
All right, but back to
the actual story. Norman pulls a Hulk Hogan brother and rips off his shirt, and he's like, the scar proves that he's the real Norman. I still, to this day, don't get that, because what's going to prevent a Norman Cullen from just cutting himself there to fool Spider-Man?
Jesus, James.
What?
That's disturbing. Just like
It's the fucking Greek. Really, Norman fucking Osborn cutting his own chest, and that's where you draw the line with him as being disturbing.
Yes, honestly, yes.
The guy who threw a teenage girl who he banged and got pregnant off a bridge, and it's the X on his chest scar that you find disturbing. The man who faked his own death and made his son go insane, become a goblin, his son then died, and then he faked his son's death. And this is the most disturbing thing about him.
Okay, James,
guy who painted a Green Goblin face over his face when he was the Iron Patriot in Siege and tried to take over the world, causing Soldier Field in Chicago to blow up. And this is the most disturbing moment with him.
Okay, James, you've made quite the compelling argument.
The guy who made Flash Thompson an alcoholic during the Death of the Family arc. And again, this is the most disturbing moment with you with him.
Okay, James, you've convinced me.
Well, anyways, yeah, the rest of the issue goes on. You know, we're in the Bugle. You got Jonah, because of course Joe Quesada came on board to go so Jonah can smoke his pipe. You got all this going on. You got another bar in another town where, you know, all this shit's going on. And you got the Stacys because, if you forgot, they brought in members of Gwen's family because, for whatever reason, they were there for like 5 years until that awful Senator Ward storyline. Ugh. But anyways, there's more of that. There's more of just people in the Bugle like, hey, we can't leave. Was Jonah the last member of Spider-Man and Daredevil supporting characters for whatever reason? Because fuck it. Are here. No, every door in the Bugle is locked and every phone line is cut and it's Halloween night. I guess Michael Myers is going to kill us all. And so you have Norman like stripping naked while he's beating the shit. Again, the most disturbing moment, John, he's stripping naked while beating the shit out of a guy in a spider costume.
I retract my previous statement.
He caused the death of the unborn daughter of his arch enemy.
Okay, James, I retract my previous statement.
So anyways, yeah, he starts dressing up as a goblin, and he starts scrambling goblin shit as he beats the shit out of Spider-Man, and you go back to the party, and then you got, like, Robbie, who's all like, dude, what the fuck's going on here? And every character is, like, trying to figure this out, and it's just so hilarious how they're acting. And it's like Flash and Betty, and I guess they're teasing more of maybe them getting back together in a relationship now, and which is weird because literally right before this, they started Betty dating Ben, and Ben, she doesn't even know is dead yet, and she's already kind of flirting with Flash again. Because remember, Betty's a whore. So yeah, that's going on. You got stuff with Flash, and then you got everybody's like, what's going on? The door's locked. And then Liz Allen's there with Foggy, and she just so happens brings up her family and how she's related to the Osborns with no fucking context whatsoever here. But she calls him just a friend, though. Well, she holds his hand and is almost like, you know what I mean, though? It's like, oh, he's a friend. And she holds his hand. They're like, no, we know what's going on. Harry's been dead for like 3 years now. You don't gotta lie to us. We're not Normie. By the way, isn't that fucked up how Normie's dressed up as a goblin? Does anybody else want to question that in this room right here? And so, yeah, you see more of the fight. It's awesome. It's Spider-Man is being pounded on, and you got like Ben, like his eyes are like swollen shut, and his nose is all bloody, and he's all beaten the fuck. His red hair, his blonde hair almost has like red stuff going through it, probably because of all the blood, turning it different colors. It is a really badass artwork, and I'm just saying that's probably how it would look like. That's how much blood's coming off him. His hair is not really all bloody like Ric Flair. I'm just saying, though, I'm really describing because he's really messed up. Like, his eyes are swollen closed from being beaten on so much here. And then he's all like, taunting Peter, and he's calling Ben your cousin, but I know he's your clone. As he goes on about how he was the mastermind of the Clone Saga, it was all his idea somehow, and he somehow manipulated everything from behind the scenes in Europe somehow. Like, there's no concrete way that it makes sense that it was Norman. If you go back to the 70s, not once does Warren even hint at anything with Norman, other than you and the Goblin killed Gwen, and that's it. There was never no hint. Obviously, there wouldn't be no hint because it's a retcon, but it's so weird how it comes out of nowhere. No, I was the puppet master, and I was Squire the whole time. A character who nobody gave a shit about. I was Squire the whole time, and I was the puppet master controlling the Jackal from behind the scenes, and Judas Traveler from behind the scenes, and woo! And it's like, that doesn't make no sense. But whatever, you're back, Norman. Who cares? And you're in the Clone Saga. So he gets on the glider in a legitimately cool splash page. And I love the way that JR always drew the Green Goblin with no pupils in their eyes. I always love that in the artwork. Like, it made him look more crazier. And then you go to a panel of ads by Crash Bandicoot, which is badass. And then you got more of this fight. Peter's fighting the Goblin. They break for the window. He's explaining more what his plan is. His plan is to kill your unborn child, make you and Mary Jane miserable, kill your clone to make you double miserable, and oh yeah, I'm gonna blow up the Daily Bugle with literally every member of your supporting cast and Foggy Nelson to hell. Ha 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 ha. And then, they go for a window, and it's actually a pretty brutal fight as they're pounding for each other. And then you got Ben, who's also like, oh no, Peter, I gotta help. And Pete's like, no, stay back. Your face looks worse than a Vanny Holyfield fight. You gotta stay back. You literally look like a walking mashed potatoes. And so Peter goes to fight, and then they're all like talking by the window, and then Norman realizes what's going on as he just we don't see it, but we just get a sense of him like on the window, like, oh, that's weird. Something just broke out of that window. It's getting closer. It's kind of green and purple. It's got smoke coming out of it. Oh, you know what? It almost looks like when Harry dressed up like his father's. Oh my god! Like, I just imagine that's what he's thinking in his head as he drops the cigar, and then you hear, "Hello, Norman. Long time no see, best pal of mine." Because that was kind of like they were both members of the same country club, if you remember, during the Ditko era, and so that's kind of like the homage to that. He is to Jonah what Harry was to Peter. I guess that they kind of try to do that. I know they did it with Harry's death issue, where they like over the top did it. Where you were my father's best friend. You guys never hung out besides those random times when you guys were smoking cigars in the country club. But anyways, yeah, that's going through. They go for the window, and then you hear him going, that voice, and this is the moment when he realizes that Norman Osborn's the Green Goblin. It doesn't matter how many times that Office Rocker Harry said that Norman's the Green Goblin. This is when Jonah realizes it finally, that he's the Green Goblin. And then he's like, yeah, Jonah, you remember me. I'm alive. Ah! And he's flying around with Jonah. He's threatening to pull a Gwen Stacy with Jonah. And sort of like, Gwen was my girlfriend. This is Jonah. Like, I fucking care. No, he doesn't do that. Spider-Man comes in to save him. And then he's like, dude, really? I get the girlfriend thing. Totally, I get it. I banged her too. But, Jonah, we can just let him die. It works both. It's a win-win for both of us. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. And I'm just going on a tangent here, and I'm probably pissing off John. But anyways, yeah, he goes on this goblin, sparkler, electro glove thingy. He goes through the window, and then he sees Liz, and he goes, oh, you look frightened, my daughter-in-law. Smack. Because remember, Norman just bitch slapped Liz Allen, his daughter-in-law, who is blonde and blue eyes, and is wearing a purple dress.
Oh my god.
Look like Gwen.
I didn't even realize that.
It's so hilarious. He goes for the window with Jonah after fighting Spider-Man, and then he goes, "Oh, Liz, my sweet daughter-in-law." That's literally the panel. As he bitches at her like, "How dare 3 years after the death of Harry, who's not even really dead, and I got him someplace in a mansion in Europe, you know." How dare you go on a date with Foggy Nelson of all people? He's a Daredevil character. You got a whole room of Spider-Man guys, and you pick a Daredevil guy? And then everybody freaks out as everybody's like, "Dude, what the fuck?" Betty's all like, "Oh, I'll help you, Liz. Even though we were rivals for years, I'll help you." And then you got him saying, "It's Norman. It's Norman. I don't know how, but it's Norman." And then Robbie's like, "Just don't provoke him." And of course, Spider-Man shoots the web line at him right there, and he goes, "Settle down, tough guy. Sleep." Spider-Man, I knew you two were in it together. Hey, kiddo, let Mom and Dad talk for a while. Sleep. Oh, wait, wrong continuity again. But it fits here. But yeah, he like grabs Norman, he throws him out the window. Norman's like, "I'm gonna fucking kill them all." He starts shooting his laser beams. It starts going all epic and badass. You got Ben looking out the window, and Ben being like, "I should do something." So he starts crawling down, and he goes to go do something. More of the shit's going on. You see the rest of the city as this is going on. You see, Stacy, there with the police friends and everything, and it's, I guess, because it's the man who killed Gwen. He's like, "No, I gotta be there too." And then this fight is epic, and JRJR, the explosions, Norman's laugh, they're destroying the Daily Bugle logo, on top of the building. The costumes are ripping. They're pounding the shit out of each other. It's epic. It's badass. And then Ben punches for the door, and then he comes in all beating up. He's like, "Everybody, move! Let's get out of here!" The pumpkin bombs are all flying around, and they're on the floor. And he protects, with his spider sense. He's able to protect Flash from being exploded, or vice versa. I can't really tell because they're both blonde hair and kind of wearing the same coat, so it's really hard to tell who's who. But that happens, and Ben, gets up. He's all destroyed. He's bleeding to death, and he's wrapping up the tape around him. He's being really heroic and really badass, and he's an awesome guy. And he's saving all these people who are not his friends technically, but Peter's friends, but he's still doing the right thing. Ben Reilly, even though this fucked up situation, is doing the right thing.
That'll go out the window in 20 years.
And then he sees Osborn's building. He's like, bingo, more of the fights going on. Pumpkin bombs. It's epic. He's all like freaking out because he can't kill Spider-Man. Spider-Man kicks him in the gut. They're fighting. Peter takes off the mask. He's like, "It's no more mask, Osborn. This one's for keeps. No more mask." And he takes off the mask of the Green Goblin. He takes off his mask. He goes, "It's never been about Goblin and Spider-Man. It's always been about Peter Parker and Norman Osborn." And it's like, no, actually it wasn't. Like, for 3 whole years, you guys didn't even know each other's secret identities. But whatever. So Norman starts coming out to choke Peter, and Peter grabs him by the arms, and it's totally badass. As Peter pretty much says, "You're not haunting me no more. You can't throw my girlfriend off the bridge no more. Aren't you married? Fuck!" He's just punching the shit. He's finally getting his revenge. Ben shows up. Norman's knocked out. They're all like, it's all's well that ends well. Nothing bad can happen. Norman hits the button on his wrist like he did all the way back in 222. The glider comes, and Ben takes it this time in the back. And Ben heroically sacrifices himself as he falls to his death after being hit by the glider as a hero. And he hits a car. Peterson's like, "What is it about blonde people I care about, you asshole? Dick." So Peter's like, "My non-kill rule, nobody dies. Well, Osborn, fuck you," as he throws a pumpkin bomb at the Green Goblin, who then explodes in a fire rate.
Not just a pumpkin bomb, a bag full of pumpkin bombs.
Literally. And he says, "Goodbye, Osborn." So the Green Goblin starts laughing hysterically. It's, I'll never die. We'll meet again, Spider-Man. As, that happening, Peter jumps down. He goes to Ben with the wreckage. His whole supporting cast, besides Mary Jane, who's in the hospital, is all there as Ben dies, but not before saying his final dying words. "Take care of my niece, Peter. Tell her all about her Uncle
Well, okay. Well,
And then
it
after
turned
that,
out
the
that
real Ben Riley died.
well, it turns out that 20 years later, Ben Riley turned out to not really be dead, and he tried to kill every single person on the planet only to replace them with clones. And then he burned down a replica of his old childhood home because comics. And then he paid two guys to beat up a girl so that he could earn her trust so that she would give him money. And then he went off into his own title that we haven't read yet, but I'm sure he's going to do more screwed up stuff there. So, yeah, those are the stories that Peter will tell his little niece about.
No, he can't because she's dead.
Well, assuming he has, like, another child.
Assuming it's the Spider Girl continuity, where Peter's also dead too now too.
He could have told those stories before he died.
You mean Annie, who's not even from this continuity? Let's face it, comics fucked this up. That's the one thing that makes this comic bittersweet. Is he says, "Tell my niece about it," and they both don't know the baby's dead. So his dying words are for nothing, are literally in vain. That's the sad irony about Ben's death. Is his dying words. Tell my niece about her Uncle Ben. He's the Uncle Ben to her, and she's dead. It's sad and it's twisted and it's really fucked up and dark when you think about it. So yeah, Ben's dead, and as Peter's carrying, Ben starts to clone degenerate, which shouldn't fucking happen, because he was the perfect clone, but whatever. And he's all like, no, you were the clone. And then he leaves, but in the trades and re-releases, they show that he spread the ashes around the city. He goes to the hospital. Mary Jane tells him that the baby's dead. Peter says he already knew, somehow. And then the comic ends with them out of the hospital holding on each other, knowing they'll get through it all as husband and wife. I repeat, Ben Riley died a hero, heroically sacrificing himself for Peter and his friends as a hero. And Peter and MJ, despite all this pain of their loss, are going to try to get through it as husband and wife.
That lasted all of what? The Peter and MJ marriage lasted all of
another
10 years.
decade.
That lasted 10
Ben Riley's
years.
death lasted a whole another 2. And then we get an ad, which is really hilarious, because if you read the rest of this trade, it's all over the place, and it kind of spoils the end of this issue. It is even in other. This is an ad that they were selling. The return of the one true Spider-Man. They spoiled the ending of the comic, but they kind of had to do that because they had to tell people, it's over. The clones are dead. Come back. Please come back.
All right, James. So what did you think of Peter Parker Spider-Man number 75?
It's a really good comic. I mean, I shat on it, but I shit on it in that whole classic, you just ripping off old comic. And it's the 90s. I mean, you got a double-sided cover, and it's double, length, and, holographic covers and all that 90s stuff. But it's actually a pretty good story. If you read the rest of the Clone Saga, it is actually a pretty good ending. The stakes are high. And they don't just bitch around by having Norman slit the wrist or the throat of Ben and having him just clone his center right there saying, see, he's the clone, you're the original. And that's the end of Ben Riley. He actually died a hero's death, which got fucked over now by Dan Slott, but that's a story from another time. Literally every other episode so far this year. But, he had they actually show why Ben was a hero, and he died as a hero, and that's awesome. They could have just easily went, see, the clone they slit the clone's neck, and he degenerated. He's dead. Fuck him. He's the Poochie of the Spider-Man universe. So that goes on, but they didn't, and it's really good. The rest of the story with the only problem I have is the Bugle people, because it takes them too long to catch on. And it's so weird that it's another decade that the rest of the Marvel Universe catches on that Norman's the Green Goblin, when you have a room full of people hearing him say out front he's Norman Osborn. I get it that later on you find out he does a PR thing, and we'll get to that later on with the next issue, but it's still so weird that this whole room of people like, Norman Osborn's the Green Goblin? Norman's out. Jonah acts like he knew all along Norman was the Goblin. All this stuff. And it's like, it doesn't really go anywhere until another decade. It's weird. And even then, it's like during the Dark Reign era, Jonah is once again friends with Norman, and it's weird. It's like, he tried to kill you. He literally tried to kill you during your office Halloween party.
You pulled
now you're like, Norman, welcome to the party, Norman. Oh, Norman, you all know Norman Osborn, my best friend. It's like, I'm the mayor of the city and I'm friends with Norman Osborn.
It's like,
Wait, what?
and a few years later, Jonah will literally walk into Norman's office with a gun, intent on killing him.
Exactly.
It's like,
But yeah,
you can't rebuild a friendship with someone like that.
the Mary Jane scene at the end is powerful. The Ben's death's powerful. Everything is like, it's really depressing, and it's so weird because when you read this, you're like, this is the most depressing I want to say Spider-Man got until Back in Black. You're dealing with his unborn child dying, you know, the guy who's the closest thing he ever had to a brother dying. Your worst enemy came back from the dead, and he caused those people to die. You know what I mean?
So, James, anything else? Need you give this a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down?
I give it a thumbs up. I give the whole Revelations arc a thumbs up. If you haven't read the Revelation storyline, go back, read it. It's really good. There's, like I said, there's some problems. Like, I know they tried to do it a few years later with like a Norman Osborn journal miniseries that explained how he controlled the Clone Saga. But even then, that's kind of non-canon because in that journal, he outright mentions multiple times that Harry's dead. And it's like, but why are you writing in your own personal diary that Harry's dead if you knew he was alive? But so that's kind of non-canon now. But you know what I'm getting though? It's like it's really fucked up, weird Marvel continuity that way when you think about it. How the journal that came out later on a few months after this to explain shit now because of one more day doesn't make no fucking sense in itself.
Okay, my thoughts on this issue. I agree with James on a lot of this stuff. I think it's really, really good. I mean, and this is coming from someone who hates the Clone Saga. I hate the Clone Saga. It is the worst era of Spider-Man I have ever read, in my own personal opinion. If you like,
my personal opinion is still going to be Superior. Nothing tops Superior in their idiot ball.
You know, I have respect for Clone Saga fans. I understand why people like the Clone Saga. Clone Saga fans, your liking of the Clone Saga is perfectly valid. I personally do not like the Clone Saga. I hate it. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's stupid. I think it's way too complicated. But I like this issue. You know why? Because Norman Osborn comes back. He has a badass fight with Spider-Man that is one of the best fights in a Spider-Man comic I think I've ever read. It's just, and a lot of that is due to John Romita Jr. John Romita Jr.'s artwork in this is absolutely top-notch. It's 10 out of 10, A+, the highest accolades you can give. It's really, really strong. I agree with James. I like that Ben Reilly gets a hero's send-off because it's like, say what you will about the Clone Saga, say what you will about Ben Reilly as a character. He's been integral to the Spider-Man books for years at this point. And so it's nice to see that a character who is so essential to the plot and is so essential to the world as it is at that moment gets a send-off worthy of the character. I think that was a really good choice on Howard Mackey's part. Mary Jane and Peter losing their unborn child is I agree with James. It's got to be the darkest, if not the darkest moment in Spider-Man history, one of the darkest. It's easily top 3 because that is screwed up and it's horrible, and I'm not sure Norman could ever do something worse to Peter than that.
The only thing that worse is in later arcs near the end of this era, called the final chapter, is when they out of their way tease that the baby's not dead and she's still alive, with that nurse having a baby mysteriously and buying a crib and setting up a crib and buying baby toys and feeding something with milk in a baby bottle. And then she outright says a few times, "May, how are you doing, May? Oh, you're doing so good, May." And then even outright saying in a phone call to Peter Mary Jane, May is still alive. Only for the twist to turn out, it was Aunt May.
Yeah, that's a storyline we'll have to talk about another day, but I mean, I agree with James on a lot of this stuff. Peter Parker Spider-Man number 75. Again, this is coming from a Clone Saga hater. I enjoyed this issue. I give it a thumbs up. I think it's really good. And it's a good Spider-Man comic. I think it's up there like as a pretty good one. I don't really have anything else like original to say that James hasn't already said. Was James just giving me the finger or something, or was he just trying to scratch his eye, or was he just trying to scratch his eyebrow?
I was scratching my eyebrow and I didn't realize I was using the middle finger when I did it.
I was like, I'm complimenting this comic. Why am I getting a middle finger?
Because it would be weird if we went for an episode without me giving you the finger or you giving me the finger.
Yeah, pretty much. That's like our running gag of this show. But I give it a thumbs up. Really good comic. So that will we will move off of that into Spectacular Spider-Man number 250, The Return of Evil. It's what it says on the cover. Quick rundown of the creative team. J.M. DeMatteis, writer. Luke Ross, penciler. Dan Green and Al Milgrom are the inkers. Richard Starkings and Comicraft /KS are on letters. John Callis on colors. I apologize. Ralph Macchio is the editor, and Bob Harris is the editor-in-chief. This story is entitled Citizen Osborn. And this story, I will admit, is not completely Osborn-centric. There's a lot of like subplots and supporting cast stuff in here, but it's still really good. So the issue begins with Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin flying past Anna Watson's house, which is where Peter and Mary Jane are currently staying, and basically just laughing and then flying away. And Mary Jane wakes up, she's like, "What the fuck was that?" You know, as
It's so
any
hilarious that his evil plan is just, I'm gonna fly over to their house, laugh, somehow they're gonna hear it over my glider, and then fly away.
Mary Jane wakes up and has the most understandable reaction anyone has ever had. It's like, what the fuck was that?
But the sad thing is, she, like I said, she shouldn't have heard that. She just literally just hear like a motor, and her brain would just think it's an airplane flying over their heads.
Yeah, and so Mary Jane's like, oh man, I wish Peter was here with me right now, but he's out being Spider-Man. Why does my husband enjoy being Spider-Man more than being with me? And then it turns out Peter is with Dr. Kafka and John Jameson at Ravencroft because John Jameson's currently having...
And they hear the laugh too somehow because it was that loud, and like they're all like, what the fuck was that?
Because John Jameson's having trouble with the man-wolf, and so Dr. Kafka is like trying to calm him down, and she does a really terrible job of it where she actually makes it worse. Because she's like, oh no, I'm going to try this technique of hypnotherapy that's going to calm him down. Oh, okay.
Bitch.
Yeah, what's your plan? Oh, I'm going to talk to him and make him turn into the man-wolf. Okay, that's not a good plan.
That is actually a really terrible plan. What's your next thing? You're going to call in Dr. Connors in here, and you're going to tell, be the Lizard. Then you're going to bring in Bruce Banner, be the Hulk. Then you bring in Dr. Jackal, be Hyde.
It's like, and so she unleashes the man-wolf, and she's like, he's going to eat me. And Spider-Man's like, really? Really? You didn't think of that before you pulled this off.
Wait a second. I just thought of something with Kafka. Did she come back during Clone Conspiracy, the clone degenerate? She was dead too.
Yeah,
because Master kills her.
Yeah, I think she did. I think she clone degenerated again.
No, that's what I mean though. But she did come back because I'm trying to think. Was she like literally the only character that people forgot about? Like even Dan didn't remember her to put her in that.
No, I know she came back. I remember she was name dropped somewhere in there, but I think she clone degenerated.
Well, she had to, unless some writer comes back later and uses her as the clone. She probably did.
So they managed to subdue the man-wolf, basically because Kafka finally gets good at her job, I guess. And Spider-Man's like, I hate you. I hate you so much.
Bitch.
And so then we see Norman Osborn visiting Liz Allen at her office. And basically, Liz is like, this is for slapping me when you showed up on the glider. Boom!
Oh, you mean this? He does it to her again before she can do it. You're blonde. We're going to fuck, and then I'm going to throw you off a bridge. That's how it goes, honey.
And then Norman's like, Liz is saying, you know what? I will never, ever let you come near Normie. You destroyed Harry. I won't let you destroy my son. And Norman's like, he means everything to me. I would never hurt him. And then we cut to the hospital. Flash was in a drunk driving accident because he's stupid. And his sister shows up, and she basically gives him a talk of like, hey, you know how our alcoholic father was always blaming his car accidents on everyone else? That's exactly what you're doing. stop it, Flash. And Flash is like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Flash like, you don't get it. My name is a ripoff of a DC character. No, it's not. I'm really drunk then.
And then Kraven the Hunter's son, Kraven's son, one of them. I don't remember who this one is.
It's the third one, I think. I think this is literally the third time they tried to redo Kraven with his son.
Yeah, he is like, Calypso basically wants to get with him, and he's like, haha, you came expecting the father and you found the son, and Calypso's like, screw you. Oh wait, I'm not going to screw you. Not anymore, at least. And so,
which is awkward, because I think, isn't Calypso one of the mothers of one of the brothers?
I don't know. I think
she is. I think she's one of the mothers of one of the kids.
I don't know. But then you get Mary Jane, like, looking through photo albums, and basically, like, this is what everyone on the internet has always said, and I think we've mentioned it on this show a few times. Man, do people, like, try to, like, they really try to, like, make Gwen into this Jesus-type figure after her death, because they're like, oh man, she was so perfect, she had such poise, such optimism.
When she wasn't.
Such optimism and joy. I was like, nope, sorry, that's not how she was written in those early issues. Nope.
She was a bitch. And I like the Gwen character, don't get me wrong, but I like her the way she was, because she was realistic. She was a bitch at times. But yet they play her out as just perfect little angel, to the point that, you say one bad thing about Gwen Stacy, and it's like, no, you know what I mean? Like, Marvel will react that way. It's like, why are you reusing Gwen again? Because she's the greatest girlfriend love interest of all time, but she's dead. Wait, how dare you? I wanted to bang her when I was 13 reading those comics in the 70s, damn you.
It's like, Gwen was not this perfect character that everyone makes her out to be, and it's just like, it's so distracting in here, because it's like,
what it is the artists, it's the writers and the artists and the editors at Marvel that were kids when she was around, who remember her, and they have that nostalgic glasses on about how awesome she is.
It's them writing Gwen Stacy like they remember her when they were readers, but the thing is, that's not actually Gwen Stacy as she was.
There is moments, if you go back and read that, where her and Peter are that couple. They're always like, I love you, Snuggie Put, and then later Eskimo kissing, and all that stuff. They're really romantic. But then literally the next issue, something happens, like he runs out on her on a date or whatever, or he accidentally hits her father as Spider-Man, and then she's pissed at him for 6 months.
Yeah, it's like, they did have those moments of purity, but there was also a lot of drama.
Bullshit.
And so it's like, they had those moments, but they were surrounded by BS, all right? And so,
like Peter would run off to be Spider-Man, and he would tell his Aunt May it's because he's hanging out with Mary Jane, and then Gwen goes, Peter left our date, and he goes to Aunt May's house. She goes, oh, he said he's out with Mary Jane, and then she'll be mad at him for having a date with Mary Jane behind her back. That was Gwen. And then she would cry for 5 issues about how Peter doesn't love her. That was Gwen.
And then 2 weeks later, we get a time skip here. Norman is basically reopening the Osborn Foundation that Harry started in Spectacular 200. And he announces, he's like, oh yeah, I was in Europe because Spider-Man threatened my life. And then Jonah Jameson persuaded me to come out of hiding and come back to New York. So I did. And now we're co-owners of the Daily Bugle. And we're going to try to help people. And basically everyone in the crowd, except for everyone in the crowd is eating this up and just absolutely loving it. But the characters who actually know Norman Osborn, they're like, wow.
Like Phil Urich did when they kind of repeated the scene in New Ways to Die. I don't know if you remember that, but remember how he's like, it's almost like somebody magically just made you forget that this guy's the biggest monster in the Marvel universe.
So it's like Peter Parker walks in on Robbie and his wife and Betty and all them, just going like, man, this is such bullshit. And Peter's just, Norman sees Peter and he goes up and basically taunts Peter without actually doing it, but he brings up Gwen, and it's like such a sad end to such a lovely girl. I
fucked her.
I just want to make this world a better place, and I intend to find this maniac in the goblin mask. just not just for myself, not just to sweep away the lies he spread about me. I'm also doing it for dear Gwen. And he just walks away, and Peter's like, I really should just. You know how in those early Ditko issues, he's always saying, "No, I can't fight Flash Thompson because if I punch him, I'll like I'm so strong. If I punch him once, I'll kill him. Basically, even if I'm not trying to."
Literally minutes away from becoming that kid with a gun in his school.
Well, I wouldn't take it that far, but I wouldn't take it that far, but like
he says, "Sob, just they wait. One day they'll be sorry they were made fun of me." Sob. He sounds like that kid from that JMS issue.
But it's like Peter's here, and he's just like, I just want to punch Norman right in the face, which we will get to later in this issue.
If I was Peter, you know what I would have done right there? You know what I would have said? I wouldn't say punch him in the face. I'm like, man, if I didn't care about my secret identity, I would totally punch him in the dick right now. Because remember, remember there's TV cameras all around here in press. What's more humiliating to Norman Osborn? Getting punched in the face with his goblin healing factor that he'll forget about in 5 minutes? Or giving that public humiliation for a lifetime of somebody just punching him in the dick?
So then John Jameson goes up to Jonah and is like, man, how could you be so weak as to partner with Norman? And Jonah's like, I'm doing this for you, for Marla, for love. And then Flash Thompson's just like walking around his apartment brooding about how much he sucks at life because he's kind of an asshole at this point.
And they're teasing the fact that they want him to become the new Green Goblin.
And so then Flash decides to go pay a visit to his father. Kraven, for whatever reason, fights animals naked. I feel like that's a terrible idea.
Well, that's in continuity.
I know, but it's like, I feel like that's a terrible idea.
Because his father did that during Kraven's Last Hunt.
I know, but that's still a terrible idea. It's like, there are some things that those animals could easily bite into that I don't want to think about. Like, that would really hurt.
They're Kravens. They're hunters. Those animals have to worry about them doing that.
It's just, that's painful to think about.
Did you ever read Kraven's Last Hunt, John?
Yes.
I think we did because we did this as an issue. I mean, fucking Spider-Man rips the head off of tigers in that comic.
So Norman Osborn is giving donations to charities and stuff like that, and he's talking about how he wants to make the world a better place for Normies and stuff like that. And so Liz and Mary Jane get into a fight because Mary Jane's like, Liz, how can you just stand here and let this guy get away with this? And Liz is like, you don't know anything about this, Mary Jane. And so, and then Liz slaps Foggy because he's Foggy, basically. She slaps Foggy because he's being Foggy. Peter and Mary Jane go back to Aunt Anna's house, and they're like, Peter's saying, you know, I'm going to do something about this. Aunt Anna tells them their house has been ransacked, and Peter runs up to their room, and he finds a goblin action figure with a gotcha sign. And so what does he do? He goes over to Osborn's place, breaks through the window, and just beats the shit out of him.
And punches him in the dick, finally.
And then Flash shows up at his old family's house, and he beats the crap out of his father and says, you know, look at the monster you and your alcoholism turned me into. And then his mother comes in, and she's like, Eugene, how could you do this? And then Norman is like, haha, Spider-Man, you fell for my trap. I have this entire beating on camera. Once I get this out to the media, you'll be the menace that Jonah's always said you were. And Spider-Man's like, damn it, I'm an idiot. And basically the issue ends with him just being so confused as to how he's going to take down the Goblin.
Which sets up Identity Crisis.
Yeah. I'll go first with my thoughts on this issue. I like this issue a lot as well. I think this is really good for setting up Norman, like, going forward in Spider-Man's world. He's co-owner of the Daily Bugle, so he's basically taken over Peter's work life. He's screwing around with the supporting cast. He's tormenting him as Spider-Man and as Peter Parker.
Literally, if anybody like Phil Urich or anybody tries to write a story about how Norman's the Green Goblin, he just doesn't do the story because he controls the paper.
Yeah, it's like Norman's basically unstoppable at this point, and it's awesome. And of course, you get the awesome supporting cast scenes with Flash and his father and all that stuff. You get the gorgeous artwork by Luke Ross and his team. It's all really good. I love just there's such tension throughout the story where it's like everyone wants to just take this guy out, but they know they can't.
They just want to all punch him in the dick.
but they know they can't because it's like it will never work. And Spider-Man just loses it. He's just like he just goes in there to beat the hell out of Norman Osborn because as far as he's concerned, why the hell not? And it's absolutely amazing. The only negative aspect of this issue was the Mary Jane nostalgia scene because it's like as much as I love Mary Jane as a character and as much as I respect like the Lee Ditko Romita days, Gwen was not that perfect. And every time someone says that, it's like, no, just stop, all right. That took me out of the book when I read that, and it always does. But other than that, I really have no complaints. It's a really good story that does a lot to set up Norman in the Spider-Man world going forward, at least until the Howard Mackie John Byrne reboot, which basically screws everything up. But this story by itself is really good. So James, what do you think of Spectacular Spider-Man number 250?
This is another really good issue of Spider-Man. Like I said, this era is really underrated, and I think this issue kind of shows that because it's actually pretty good. I love that twist with Norman in this era. Like I said, it's not until like a decade later with Luke Cage that you find in like Alias or whatever, I forgot what it was, but like one of the Jessica Jones Luke Cage books, they finally revealed that Norman's the Green Goblin of the whole world. And it's almost like a decade later after this because he can't do shit. Nobody. He is literally that. He's like kind of like Kingpin was an Ultimate. How Peter's like, why don't you guys just write in your newspaper that Kingpin's a dick? And he's like, because he owns stock in the newspaper. And Norman's kind of like that too. In fact, he owns more than just some stock. He owns 50% of the company because he blackmailed Jonah to get 50% of it. And Jonah's afraid of Norman throwing his Marla off a bridge. Robbie's afraid of his wife being thrown off a bridge. Like, everybody's afraid of their loved ones coming after them. If they even say a small slight sting at Norman in the public. And I love that. Like, that's a good way of making sure the secret stays intact with Norman to the rest of the world, because everybody's scared shitless that he's just going to go murder their families like he did Gwen. And him taunting Peter with, Gwen was such a nice girl. And if we had context now with Since Past, he would have said something like that, like, she was such a sweet, kind girl. I know, I plowed her. Yep, I went all up in her, and then I killed her and snapped her neck. And he says that in public, and he's like, "Oh shit. Well, good night, folks." He goes away.
And then it's just like, I just imagine Peter just being, Norman! And then it's just running after him, and everyone's running after Norman.
It's like a Looney Tunes cartoon. It's like that episode of Family Guy where Peter's being chased by the mob of people, and all you see is the bird's eye view of the small little white dot that's him and the black mob of people coming after him.
Or I'm just imagining like any Scooby-Doo episode ever. They're just running through all the doors. He's running through all the doors and the monster's behind him. Okay, I won't sing anymore until we don't get copyrighted.
No, the Family Guy one fits better because I just love that joke. Is that Peter becomes a feminist, but he's like over the top about it, and then so the guys try to take him to places to get him really back to being a man again, like not being all super like feminine, and then like. All of a sudden, he goes to a pro-black rally with Cleveland, and Cleveland's like, I know it's, a black rally, but still, but it's guys, and it's all about men, and it's all about empowerment, and it should get them, back to being, feeling like a guy again. Peter goes up to give his speech. Again, it's a black empowerment, rally, and he goes, it's you that's why there's wars, it's you that's why there's murder, it's all your fault, and you should all be ashamed of yourself. He's talking about men. But he's talking to like a room full of like thousands of black guys. So all of a sudden, the next scene is there. He goes, "You should all be ashamed of yourself and apologize to me." And all of a sudden, it just cuts to like a small little white dot that's him that's running away as this angry mob just comes after him.
Just so you know, Spider-Man's Tangled WebShow does not endorse racism.
It's not racism. The whole joke is that Peter's an idiot.
I know, but still,
not even being racist.
I know, but still, I just wanted to doing damage control.
But anyways, going back to the topic, I just love that with Norman, how he's like tormenting everybody. He's all like he's literally digging at him, which makes you want, God, I want to punch him in the dick. You got more of the Flash, which again, you find out later is Norman. Like, Norman's deliberately making him go drunk so he can kind of save him and fix him. But in reality, he wants him to be the fifth Green Goblin. Until they realize that decision sucks, let's make it a clone of Harry. But we can't really say it's a clone of Harry because Clone Saga sucked. But that's what it's setting up, and it's actually pretty good here. How he beats the shit out of his abuser, and he finally gets, you know what I mean? He gets it, and you're happy for him, but at the same time, you know that was the wrong way to handle it. So it's bittersweet. You're like, yeah, Flash, beat the fuck out of your dad, and then you're like, oh my god, I just cheered on the guy to beat the fuck out of his dad.
Yeah, it's like that really was that's the point of no return for Flash. Like you can't come back from that.
It's setting him up as the Goblin, pretty much. It's more of him taking another step towards that. So you got that going on. You got more of the Liz stuff, which is kind of ironic now with the way she's been portrayed as the evil businesswoman. You know what I mean? The whole kind of stay back. I don't want nothing to do with this kind of lifestyle, and now where she is.
Yeah.
So you got that, and it's in the beginning, like same thing like John. It's like I just like it for the what the fuck, because this is how she should have heard it. She should not have heard anything from him. For all she knew, a plane just flew overhead, stopped, and then took off again. She shouldn't have heard him just randomly going, ha ha ha!
I just want to imagine
literally like a little kid prank. I just imagine like for like weeks this is what's been going on. It's ring ring. Park your reticence. Yes, my refrigerator running. Well, then you better go catch it. I killed your girlfriend. Ha! You know what I mean? Though? Norman. All of a sudden he comes home and then spray painted in green paint over his door is haha Goblin rules you. I killed your girlfriend. Like all these little like high schooler like pranks, and it's all Norman doing it. Because remember, it fits. Because the same guy who killed Gwen Stacy and masterminded the Clone Saga also for his master plan was to take Spider-Man to Hollywood and film the Spider-Man movie. So it fits. So yeah, so you got that going on. It's, you know, that's all really good. The art's really good. I just really like it's the characters, like everything from the Bugle supporting cast about how they can't save who he is, to Peter being like, I want to do something, and then how it fucks him later in the end, how he finally like loses it, and because it's like, oh shit, he's got video evidence of Spider-Man just punching Norman Osborn for no reason after he just told everybody that I murdered, that I was going to kill him on the bridge. I'm fucked. You know what I mean, though? It's like Norman got him. It's literally a gotcha moment, which I like, and it's the mind games. The only problem I have is this explanation, and how they repeat this explanation later on again with Harry. How is this? Oh, I went to Europe because Spider-Man friend of my life. And it's like, but you were buried. People saw your body. Your son mourned you for like 2 decades. He even snapped and became the Green Goblin because he thought you were it. And your son's dead because of it. Yeah, that was all really shame, and I'm so sorry that Harry died because of that man making up lies about me. But no, I just loved that Norman's the one to talk me, and Jonah, my buddy, talked me to come back. But Jonah and everybody thought you were dead. I mean, Jonah sent Luke Cage to kill Spider-Man because he thought that you killed Norman Osborn. When everybody saw your body laying there, cut up with a glider inside of you. Well, good day, folks. You know what I mean? No, it's like, there's no explanation whatsoever for how Norman got it. Just waved it all away by, oh, I was in Europe. Like, that's all the context. Oh, I'm in Europe and Spider-Man tried to kill me. When, like, evidence points to, you have more to explain the fact that we saw them bury your body.
Okay, James, anything else, and do you give this issue a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, or thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
Alright, that's going to conclude our reviews for this episode, and that's also going to conclude this episode of the podcast. We really don't have anything else to talk about. Next week, as we mentioned, Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 25 is coming out, so we will have a review of that. It is the big return of Norman Osborn for the first time in like 3 years to the Spider-Man books, except for that little cameo he had at the end of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 4, where his face was all bandaged up, and he's obviously not being Mason Banks anymore, thank Christ.
That's the thing that pisses me off again about the Mason Banks thing. It was since it was Norman, it was a complete waste of fucking time.
It was a complete waste of time. It was the stupidest twist.
I still said, the way I would have done it, and you could keep Norman being insane, is to reveal that this guy is nuts and thought he was Norman Osborn. Because he found one of the goblin layers and took the goblin serum. Like, kind of like the Hobgoblin. Say he found one of the goblin layers, took the serum, and believed that he was Norman Osborn. and that the real Norman Osborn behind the scenes was manipulating him. That's good storytelling, if you ask me.
All right.
No, I got plastic surgery to fuck around with Doc Ock and Spider-Man's body. Then the real Spider-Man came back, beat me up, so now I'm getting plastic surgery again to go back to my old face.
All right, James. But any final shout-outs or words for the listeners before we sign off?
Like I said, I'm reading a lot of DC books. I mean, recommendations is weird for a Spider-Man Marvel podcast, but, Detective Comics, the current Superman stuff's really good. So recommendations to the people who are, Tom King and the guys that are on those creative teams. It's a really good run. Dan Jurgens is on the one that he used to write Spider-Man in the Clone Saga, so there's a Spider-Man connection there. So those are really good. Again, I had fun at the pay-per-view. Goldberg, seeing him win the world title again. He was my childhood hero. It was shit because I like Kevin Owens, and it was a 26 seconds match. And he's a 50-year-old part-timer, and I can get it's like bittersweet. Like I can say that was bullshit, but at the same time, as that 8-year-old kid, my favorite wrestler when I was 8 years old, once again winning the world title, I was screaming and going crazy like everybody else in the stadium. And again, for all the people who has TNA Impact and the other wrestling organization, grow up. I mean, literally, you had one of your commentators turn into an annoying prick on commentary where he outright said, "Hey, I used to work for the WWE. I was calling WrestleMania in front of 80,000 people. I'm in a shitty music park where they let people get in for free now." Yeah, great way of, getting your company over by having your announcer say that it's shit compared to Vince McMahon's company. Yay, TNA. Just yay the way you wrote off the Hardys. That was brilliant. Yay for putting highlight packages of Jeff Jarrett, the original owner, all over the place because he's back in with the company. Good going, TNA. Good going. This is why your company is always about to go out of business every year. Fuck you.
All right. My shout-outs, Marvel Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Howard Mackey, John Romita Jr., James DeMatteis, Luke Ross. Thank you for Spider-Man. Thank you for the comics we reviewed this week. Also, additional shout-out to Stan Lee because we did hear today that he's having some health concerns, so hope you're doing well, Stan. Hope you recover quickly.
Well, isn't there rumors that, they said that a lot of his Marvel cameos, he films them 2 years in advance? That way, if something did happen with him, he could still be in the movies.
Yeah, he's a 90. What is he? 90. He's a 94-year-old guy. It's like I hope you're doing well, Stan.
Yeah, nobody wants to say that that Stan. I don't want to wake up tomorrow morning here that Stan Lee passed away. You know what I mean?
That would honestly I don't usually get depressed about celebrity passings, but that would depress me. I'm going to be honest with you.
I mean, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm numb to it as a point with celebrity passings when you're a wrestling fan, but. Stan will, tug on those heartstrings because no matter what you say about Stan, he's still Stan.
This wouldn't be here. We would not be here on this podcast if it was not for Stan.
Yeah, I get it. He was not 100%. So when you say this wouldn't be here, whatever, I get that. But at the same time, it still wouldn't be here because even Stan still added something to these characters, people. It was granted. I will always say, in fairness to Jack Kirby, Ditko, all those guys, it was 50-50 in my eyes. They co-created it. It was 50-50. I don't care who came up with the name and who actually designed the character and all that shit. Spider-Man's created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Batman's created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Suso and Sear created Superman. Stan and Jack did almost everything in Marvel that didn't Steven, not anything that Ditko wasn't associated. It was Stan and Jack. That's the way I always look at it. It was a writer and an artist, and that's how I always drop it in my eyes.
But here's the thing: Stan was still there, and he was still a big part. So it's everyone's like, "Oh, but Stan wasn't the 100% pure businessman." There is no such thing as a 100% pure businessman. It's and
people shit on. He's the one who gets most of the shit from comic book fans about the whole, creator shit. Yet they ignore the fact that the Image guys, literally only wrote the first year of their books, and then they ghostwritten it with other guys coming in, but they can still get the 100% royalties and not the other guys that are writing the books now. There's people who this stuff has been going on for decades in comics. Just look at all the legal battles that DC still to this day goes over Superman and his characters.
Yeah, it's
and Stan's the one who gets shit on the most, I think, from people, which is I guess he's the easy target because he's the one who's still alive. You can't see anything with Bill Finger and, Bob Kane with the Batman stuff because none of them are there no more. And you can't say it about the Schusters and Siegels and DC or Superman because they're not there no more. You know what I mean? But Stan's still here, so he's the one who gets it. And it's like he's an old man. Give him a break. And the one sad thing I will say is like Stan. It's Stan. You don't know because Stan, as much as we're giving credit, Stan is known to, I don't tell tall tales. Let's just say not liar, but maybe exaggerate the truth. And whenever he goes to conventions, they said, "Is there any writer currently you would want to work with?" He still to this day says, "I still want to try to mend the fence with Ditko and us to do one last comic together because I had the most fun ever writing with Ditko." And you hear that, and if he does die, it's gonna be sad that there is not. Then it's like there's already like zero chance, but it's like negative zero chance now of them ever, getting that one last comic together. Whether it be a book with Marvel with Spider-Man or Doctor Strange or just a book by them, like, hey, here's a new thing by Stan and Jack, a one-off, buy it. You know what I mean? Like, it's sad that it'll be like, okay, now there's like negative, 1,000% chance, and that would be a sad day for me.
Yeah, so it's like, get well soon, Stan. No one wants to see you go, so get well soon, buddy.
Stan, do something like, you write comics. I'm sure you know how to like put your brain in a robot or whatever comic book idea you ever came up to bring people back from the dead. I'm sure Stan found out a real way of doing it. Do that somehow, Stan. Nobody wants you to be sick, and nobody wants to live in the world where there's literally no more regulars in the Marvel ballpen from the old days. That's gonna suck. Get well, Stan, Excelsior, and just I guess that's the only way we can is get well soon, Stan.
Yeah, so that's gonna conclude this episode of the podcast. We will see you all next week. So have a good night.